Just a little while ago, Carolyn Levitt. What do you think the number one topic for conversation was during the press briefing?
There's been a lot of discussion about the Epstein files and the president's comments yesterday calling it a hoax. Can you clarify which part of the Epstein hoax is the hoax part?
The president is referring to the fact that Democrats have now seized on this as if they ever wanted transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, which is an asinine suggestion for any Democrat to make.
Yeah, because they didn't care much about it. Because they probably thought, well, we got some guys and gals in there probably, who've maybe done some stuff. And the other side of it was they didn't take it, I think, super serious. They thought it was a QAnon thing. Probably whispers around the hall, but it was more a QAnon kind of thing than anything else. And it turned out not to be. And it's not a hoax by the Democrats. They didn't write this up. Trump kind of going, well, this is Comey and everything. No, it wasn't. They didn't come up with this. It's been around much longer than that. And it was just sitting there. Because the powers that be that were strong enough to put this thing away made sure that it went away.
The Democrats had control of this building, the White House, for 4 years, and they didn't do a dang thing when it came to transparency in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous crimes. It was this president who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did. The Attorney General and the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these are great patriots, some of the most trusted voices in the Republican Party movement. It's part of the reason the president appointed them to these high law enforcement positions, and they spent many months going through all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and they concluded what they found in that memo, which they drafted and they released. And so the president...
Now, be honest with me, people, okay? Do you believe there's just no there there? I'm not saying Trump is involved in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying across the board that he killed himself. There was no there there. She's in jail for whatever reason, and we're all moving on. And it was a hoax or any of that. Do you really believe that? I don't think any of you do, because you're smart enough to understand that's not true. They're using it for political gain because you'd be stupid not to.
And if there's nothing there, show me the files and I'll find out that there's nothing there. I'll be like, oh, I was a dumbass for believing that.
Yeah. Or whatever files you have. But this is now starting to get people that were involved in the case talking about it, including several of the attorneys of the victims who are coming out saying, yeah, there's a lot more there. And we thought this was going to be more about accountability.
We've said that for years, that Epstein could not have run a 20-plus year sex trafficking operation without the assistance of others. And so that's what we're seeing here now. We're seeing a bipartisan call for the information that's underneath this that will disclose how this went on for so long without accountability.
Without accountability. But there's nothing. We've looked. There's nothing.
We also know that the government has seized his computers. And of course, on those computers, you're going to see people who were communicating with him, emailing with him, people he was giving money to, people who were giving money to him. All of that information is really critical. And I think that's what the outcry is for now. The outcry is for that information to be disclosed.
And I don't think that the Democrats paid that much attention to it. Like I said, it was a QAnon thing, is the way that a lot of people looked at it. Then it became a little bit more mainstream. It went from the Alex Jones world and jumped over to, the Rogans talking about it. Then the Andrew Schultz talking about it. And then Theo Vaughn's talking about it. And then Tim Dillon's talking about it. All of a sudden, it picked up steam. And then you had Kash Patel and Rogan talking about it. Then you had J.D. Vance talking about it with Theo Vaughn. Then you had Dan Bongino making a lot of hay with it. So you come out and you deliver a dud. And you delivered a dud when you handed all of those people phase one. And then it was nothing to see here. 20 years. You're delaying 20 years. And the former attorney of Epstein, the one who said he was part of intelligence, not that, the one who prosecuted, said, when all is said and done, he'll go down as arguably the worst pedophile sex trafficker in American history. I don't think that justice has been done. Now, do I know that Trump was involved in anything? No. I think the problem is he weighed in a way because Pam Bondi really screwed this thing up. And why he's protecting her so much, she kind of threw the fire on there. She said, we got these files. We got thousands. So you can't tell me that you've got thousands of pictures and videos of heinous crimes, yet nobody's prosecuted. Outside of one man. Where are the co-conspirators? Where are the unindicted co-conspirators? And unfortunately, because the way that the Trump administration weighed into this, they've got a problem on their hand because it's become mainstream. It's landed at the foot of the people that, as we were talking about, murder porn. That sounds horrible, but that's those people who love to watch the ID channel. Is that what it's called? I think it's the ID channel. Who love to watch Dateline, who love to watch, the documentaries about, the missing girls and things. It's now got to the point where those people are interested. You don't think that there's 100 podcasts getting ready to launch based strictly on this? I mean, the number one podcast year in and year out that wins all the awards and has huge, massive. When they talk about podcast downloads, Joe Rogan, as far as a show, is always usually one or two besides him is the murder one. Whichever murder one is the hot murder one of the year. That's the group now that is taking this up, which gets the average person who pays no attention to politics at all to pay attention to this, which means you're going to be answering questions a lot.
And so the president has been transparent. He has followed through on his promises to the American people, but he doesn't like to see Democrats and the mainstream media covering this like it's the biggest story that the American people care about. The president has been working so hard this week. On Tuesday, he went to Pennsylvania, where he secured $90 billion in investments for the Commonwealth, for the people of that state. After that, he came back to the Oval Office at 8 p.m. He went in there to whip votes to get the Genius Act signed into law. And because of his efforts, that bill is now going to be signed and passed. The following day, yesterday, he meets with a foreign leader, the King of Bahrain, to secure more investments into this country. And then yesterday afternoon, the president is in the East Room of the White House mourning with parents who have lost their children because of fentanyl, signing a bipartisan piece of legislation. And not a single cable network in this country took that event live and covered that event like they should. Those are the issues the president cares about. What could be more important to the American people than helping families who have lost their children? Those are the issues this president is going to remain focused on.
That sounds great, but people could say, you know what could be more important? Well, or at least just as important, the victims who were diddled by dirty, stinky, grimy billionaires, heads of state, dictators, and maybe used by our government. That could be more important in some cases. When you ask some of those people.
You think Queen Elizabeth is looking down going, oh, I really screwed up with Andrew. I should have never punished him.
No. Isn't it weird that the only person who kind of got popped outside of Epstein was
Prince Andrew by his own mother?
The most useless of all of the royals. I mean, that was it. And they were like, if there's any way they could tie it to Meghan Markle, they would. Because she is awful. Have you ever seen anybody so sour in life? She is just, I've got everything. I hate the world.
My life is just so comfortable that I can't find any reason to be happy.
I'm mad. Speaking of Trump, he's got an issue. People were wondering the other day, what's wrong with his hands? What's wrong with his ankles? Because his hands were looking pretty gnarly in some areas. They were bruised, and his ankles were swollen. And so, lo and behold, he does have an issue.
This condition that's being described as chronic venous insufficiency is a relatively common condition that we see very commonly in the medical community. Now, what people have to understand is your veins pump blood back to your heart, and they actually have a little bit of a valve system. And when that system becomes insufficient, you can start to see pooling of that blood, which can then lead to things such as swollen limbs, discoloration, and even pain.
Yeah, he had there was a couple pictures where his ankles, they were big, and but he's old. You forget, he's not 25. He is, 78. Is that what he is now? 78, 79? I think somewhere around in there. And, you're going to have some conditions. Luckily, he's lived a pretty good life as far as staying away from drugs, drinks, and alcohol and whatnot. And you've got the best medical care.
There's many different reasons of why this may happen. There's certain risk factors, such as family history, old age, obesity, pregnancy, and underlying medical conditions. And the tests that we heard from the White House press secretary about looking at heart health, those tests, a Doppler, which looks at blood flow, are all standard when it comes to assessing this situation.
He's 79. Bell whispered that in my ear. 79, Chad. He's going to be fine. He is going to be fine. Not worried about him. The fact that he's got a little something just shows you that he's, he's obviously concerned enough about it. And I think he's going to be more than okay. He's got a lot of stuff to do. He's going to save the world. Some of you are going to send me a horrible text. See, you're making fun of Trump. I make fun of everybody. Okay?
It's a true story.
It's what you should do. He's not above reproach. He's not above being poked fun at. You should be able to have a laugh. Why not? He does. I know that. He makes fun of everybody. Speaking of Trump, Pam Bondi, who screwed this whole thing up, they decided to send her to Alcatraz. This is the regular one. They're just going to leave her there.
Before the first public boats of the day arrived for tours of Alcatraz, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum took a tour around the island in front of a hand-chosen camera crew. President Trump has talked about reopening Alcatraz, and Congress is expected to introduce a bill to end environmental protections of the historic island and to take away National Park Service control of it. Some estimates put the cost of refurbishing the island and building a new prison at a minimum of $250 million.
Ah, nice. That's good money right there. And we saved all that money today because we stay, because of Geico or whatever.
Does that include bringing great white sharks in to surround the?
Yes.
I mean, how do you get them to stay there, though? It's like the alligators are going to stay in the swamp. How do you get the great whites to stay swimming around the rock?
It's a tough thing because the sharks, they migrate. They are going to go where the seals are. So you got to be aware of that. The other thing,
you just pack the island with seals.
You could pack the island with seals. That's a possibility. But the other thing is a lot of what travels through there are smaller. They'll stay a little bit closer in the bay because the baby great whites stay there before they kind of head out into the bigger ocean where the big boys and girls are. So, but nobody's talking about the fact that there's sharks there, right? Nobody is. We're talking about the alligator place. Everybody's worried about that. People, first of all, it's expensive and ridiculous. But secondly, man, I did, last time I was in Florida, we did a trip where we went out into the swamps. And it didn't cost us $450 million, I'll tell you that. And I did see a lot of alligators. There weren't the pythons. Somebody said earlier, what about all the pythons? Yeah, there weren't the pythons back then like there are now. There's no doubt there's a lot of pythons out there. They're killing all the other animals. Coming up, a legend who wasn't a legend the way that she used to be. And then she went viral, and she has now passed away. But her song's hot on the TikTok. If you missed any of the show, grab the podcast. It is The Chad Benson Show. Which, that's the big thing when it comes to the USAID that people are looking at. The food stuff is big, but the PEPFAR, that's the Bush's AIDS, HIV medicine for Africa that saved so many people that they wanted to make sure stayed in there. But they're going to get rid of $9 billion. That's great. I mean, it's a drop in the bucket, but it's better than nothing. And they'll say, well, it's $90 million over 10 years. What did I tell you guys? Go the 3 years, and then that's the only place you can go in any of these things. It doesn't count after that because a new group of folks are going to be coming in, and even if it's Republicans, they still may change some of this stuff out. But I got no problem with it. And the PBS thing, I understand in the rural areas that PBS, NPR in particular, is going to take a hit. Outside of that, though, they're going to be fine because Donald Trump is the perfect foil to get guilty white liberal people to give you more money to get tote bags for Antiques Roadshow shows and saving lives. That's also the big other thing. And, of course, not Kermit the Frog, Big Bird. What was
Elmo, man?
Elmo?
Guile.
Well, Elmo, we don't talk about. We're right now. Elmo's in rehab. That's what they should have sent Elmo, right? Yeah. Remember when he used to get in trouble and everybody he's in rehab?
Was it you that showed me the video of
where
him
he's snorting cocaine and stuff? Oh my Lord! Coming up, we'll talk. We got some fun stuff to talk about. I got some of your text messages as well. I want to get to that story about the fearless Freddie may want some help with property owners and the homeless here in Nashville. We'll talk about that as well. If you're missing the show, shame, grab the podcast. Chad Benson, Super Talk 99.7. My Pillow right now has deals galore and so much more. What? Yeah, on Percale bed sheets. What? $24.98. Now you say to yourself, Chad, sounds great. Tell me more about this. Long staple cotton, breathable, cool, and crisp when you sleep, which is awesome. Top of that, $24.98, all sizes. Boom! 11 different colors to choose from easily. You're able to maintain these things so easy. And those deep pockets, they're not going to bunch up, right? When you roll over, they don't fall apart. It's awesome how cool these things are. So, my friends, what are you waiting for? Take advantage of this. Doesn't matter the size. King, queen, super double king, cow king, big king, water bed. Doesn't matter. Bunk beds. House. It doesn't matter. $24.98. Go to mypillow.com/Benson. That's mypillow.com/Benson and get the Percale bed sheets on sale now. mypillow.com/Benson. So, we talk about Epstein, and everybody's like, oh, Epstein. You want to know why it's going to be, first of all, it's going to be a giant pain in the ass for the administration going forward because it's not going anywhere. And when you want to talk about wins, when you want to talk about all of the stuff, and you see it in sports, we talked about it just a bit yesterday, something happens to a player, to whatever it is. Even if you're the last person on the team, it doesn't matter who you are. You could have just played a great game. You could have won by 20. You could have lost by 20. It didn't matter because every question from here on out is going to be about something that you don't really want to talk about. You don't have the answers. You're not quite sure what to do. You've got constituents that are pissed because they feel like they're being stonewalled and they were insulted by the president. You've got some like it's a deep state. And instead of going, hey, I want to talk about this, you're going to be forced to answer questions that you weren't thrilled to talking about anyways, but now you got no choice. You got to ask you have to ask those questions now as a journalist that you weren't really thrilled about because to you it wasn't a story. It was a QAnon thing. Now it's a story. And now the mainstream media is covering it as much for the entertainment value, which sounds horrible to say, but because we're obsessed in this country with crime and true crime, this has now jumped into the true crime area. And the president's going to have a tough time controlling it. Definitely. And the people that were knocked down, who tried to get this information out years ago, the people that had the story, the people that had done deep, deep, deep research on this, who were told, don't, story's dead, no way. Those people are now going, okay, cool. I feel there's safety in numbers and we can talk. So we'll see. 70 years ago, kids. 70 years ago.
The North Korean armistice was signed.
Signed on this day, or
Actually,
70
that was
years
the 27th.
ago. Man had a dream about a mouse and a house, and that dream came true. Oh, Walt. When you wish upon a star. That's right. 70 years ago today, they called it Black Sunday. That was racist. Because it was hot. Now, I lived, I don't know, so close to Disney. You don't even want to know. It's like, looking back, like if you want to talk about charmed life, even though my life as a kid was not very charmed for a lot of stuff, I still got to do so many things that people, I look back now, I took for granted. I mean, the amount of times I've been to Disneyland is shameful as a kid, just shameful. Like people go now once. But he opened it up 70 years ago. He sauntered to the microphone on a hot day, wearing his suit, and he delivered the opening remarks. The expected attendance was 20,000 people. 35,000 got in because it was easy to counterfeit all of those. Now, just because you got into Disneyland, oh boy, I know. Just because you got in doesn't mean you got to ride all the rides because some of them broke down, and we'll talk about that. But also, you had to buy tickets back in the day. So you had to buy coupons. And that's where the E-Ride thing, it's an e-ticket ride. But ABC carried the whole thing live. Thank you. I'm out of here. See, peace. Bye. So Disney opened soft asphalt, ride malfunctions. Very hot. Plumber strike. Wouldn't be that way with Busy Bee, but plumber strike means that there was no water fountains working. The bathroom, the toilets worked, but that was it. On top of that, the live audience got to see what was, this all about, the Mouse House, which is incredible. Do you know how many people watch that? Get ready. This is, we talk about television shows and stuff now and who gets what. Do you know 90 million people tuned in to watch the opening day at Disneyland? It was huge. Tons of stars showed up. Sammy Davis Jr., Jerry Lewis, Frank Sinatra, Art Linkletter, and Ronald Reagan were there. And it was just magical. That was the whole point for him. It's like his thing was, I want to give to everybody all this cool stuff that he came up with in his mind, but it all started with a mouse. And that is the new thing that you can see at Disney that has a animatronic Walt that walks around, and those are his voice. That's his voice. It's kind of creepy, actually, because it looks very, very real. And it all started with Steamboat Willie. You probably don't remember it. So Al Michaels, great football, announcer. He was working, I think, at the time for, I want to say it was ESPN and ABC. And they had got, the NBC wanted him bad for their Sunday Night Football. And they called up ABC and they said, hey, we want we want Al. And what could you guys do to give us Al? We've talked to him. He's interested the whole night to Sunday Night Football. Would you be amenable to it? And they said, let us get back to you. They called back and they said, yeah, we'll do it we'll let you have him for one thing. And they're like, what? He goes, you guys own Mortimer Mouse, who was the precursor. He was the first. We want Mortimer, and we'll give you Al Michaels. And so they got Mortimer back. So they have everything now in the family, which is kind of cool. Walt, by the way, used to have it. Still has an apartment. There's still an apartment there that he used to go and watch everybody inside of the apartment.
I wonder if he kind of learned his lesson with Disneyland when they opened up Disney World. Wonder if it had problems the way Disneyland did.
I don't think it did. First of all, Disney World was an undertaking like no other because everybody, we talk about Shark, Alcatraz. That's basically what it was without the runway. And everybody's like, you're not going to be able to build anything here. And, out of his mind came that. which was incredible. But I think he learned his lesson. He invited, by the way, everybody that first day, he invited them back at a better time for free so they could get a feel for the ride. 13 of those rides are still in operation. But he used to sit up there and he would watch people on Main Street in his apartment over the fire station. And there was a lamp in the window, and you would know if he was there or not because it'd be lit. And when he died, they lit the lamp, and the lamp still burns to this day and never goes out. So 70 years ago. Cost $1 to get in. A little bit more today.
Just a smidge.
And if you want me to bring this down, there's a really good book called Death in the Tragic Kingdom. Talks about the incidents that are there. The crackdown that they have at Disneyland, though, is pretty damn amazing. It is. They have their own. So, for you guys who don't know, Disneyland's its own city. They have their own police force. They have their own fire department. They have their own everything. So, if something goes down, it gets handled inside Disneyland first before it ever gets outside of the park.
When DeSantis was having all those battles with them over the woke stuff, didn't they try to take control of their fire department or something?
Yeah, that's what they tried to do.
Yeah,
but
I vaguely remember that.
DeSantis also kind of realized I'm a renter in a sense. I'm not going. I'll not be governor at some point in time. These guys spend so much money, and the revenue is so massive. So,
and it's one of their
it's their number one.
One of the most major tourist attractions in the country, and probably the single biggest one in Florida.
Yeah, probably. That and the hot beaches in Miami. Coming up, wrap up the show. Our buddy Matt's going to be here. We'll talk to him about what he's talking about. We'll do that straight ahead. Chad Benson, Super Talk 99.7.
I'm glad everybody's having a really good time with this.
I can't believe that Glenn guy, their guy. Don't say the words, guy.
Here's the interesting thing.
I don't hear anything out of the ordinary, to be honest.
Well, for those who've been around,
I've golfed with you.
For those, no. I admit that I have a potty mouth, and because you've golfed with me, and it comes out a lot on the golf course because of my game. But most people felt like that, considering how Glenn Funk has performed as DA, that I got it right the first time.
Probably got it right the first time. The problem is the FCC doesn't understand.
Doesn't care for that.
No.
It doesn't matter. Apparently, I'm told it doesn't matter if the president of the United States of America says it or not. Because he said BS talking about Putin the other day. And that, he's just filling me full of beep, and he says the word. And I'm thinking, well, you and I talk. What would happen if we played it? The president said it.
Yeah, the president can say it, though.
But we can't say it.
No, we can't. And we should be able to. We should be adults here. It doesn't mean you drop it every other word, but, it's everybody. It's about who complains.
I've done these. I've had these conversations on air in the past. Why? And I'm fascinated with these subjects, and I don't know if other people are or not. But why did we determine that saying crap is acceptable?
Yeah,
relatively speaking, in polite society, but saying the S word isn't. Who decided that
we know what we're talking about,
right? And I always there's a comedian, I forget who does it, that talked about, I think it might have been Chappelle, that talked about the N word.
Yeah, and
how that they hate how all of that manifested itself, because now people say the N word in serious or not so serious conversations. Well, you're putting it in my head.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying. So you're accomplishing the same thing you would accomplish
exactly
as if you said it. So what are we even doing anymore?
It's because it is ridiculous. It is. We know that. And we can't, unfortunately, we have people that are so worried about everything and so very pious in a lot of ways, and they freak out as if their world's been ruined, and I just find it fascinating.
I get from a religious perspective, I get is taking the Lord's name in vain. I mean, that makes perfect.
We're not talking about that.
That makes, but the F-bomb and the S-bomb don't have anything to do with that.
No, and that's not what it was meant. The Lord's name in vain was one thing. That's the F-bomb and S-bomb have nothing to do with that.
It's just it's more interesting than Epstein.
I'll tell you that.
Right, everybody. Right, everybody.
Absolutely.
Does everybody agree with that? I'm going to let the audience decide within the first 10 minutes of the show if we're going to have an Epstein-free Thursday.
You should. You should. I mean,
because sometimes we need to let the mob rule.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, today we talked about Epstein, we talked about the fact that the problem is for the president now, it's become entertainment. It's become the true ID kind of thing. Now the people that don't pay attention
are paying attention. Well, and you handed, I feel like you made an unforced bogey, right?
Big time.
You handed the liberals a little gift. Because every single one of these people in the president's administration could be exactly right. But you still handed the Democrats a gift.
Yes.
Because now they're not pushing the economy. They're not pushing inflation rates.
And
they're
every
not talking about any
question
of that
now
is about that.
It's
right?
like we were talking earlier, being on a sports team, and you guys did something great, but one of your players got in trouble for something, and now every question is about that player.
Right.
You could have had the greatest night of your life, and all they want to know is what happened with Kobe in that room. And that's unfortunately
right. Chad, we know you just dropped 40, but did you get to speak to Kobe in the back? Right? I was like,
what kind of ring is he going to buy Vanessa? So that's unfortunate because your wins now, every question's going to be like yesterday with Bahrain, the guys there. It was almost one of those things where, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions that are not related to Epstein?
Right. Does anybody have any questions that have anything to do with this guy who's sitting here?
No.
Because it's going to get weird if that's the case. We can tell him to leave. So there's some of that going on. But I like that. I like the transparency that we have for the president's ankles.
Yeah, I did too.
So, did you see that? That was good.
They were rather
They were
large.
swollen.
Yeah, they were swollen.
There was no
doubt
question
about that. He couldn't hide the bruises and the stuff. So I'm glad he came out with that. He's 78 or 9 or whatever.
Yeah, he just turned 79 years old. I mean, come on. I would suggest that for whether you love the man or hate the man, for a 79-year-old man, Donald Trump's in pretty good health.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, and so, get it out there. And
especially considering the amount of McDonald's he eats.
Yeah. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. He's a teetotaler, and that's always been his kind of thing. And he's got good genes. I think his
his vice is fast food.
Yeah, that's his vice, is fast food.
You've never had a drink?
No.
Never had a smoke?
No.
That's interesting.
I'm a teetotaler.
See, but you know what? I had your back.
You did.
I had your share.
You did. Yes, you did. Even in the morning. Even in the morning, you're like, let's do this.
Just for Chad.
Let's go and see. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be fantastic.
Benson.
Oh, my God. What are you going to talk about that's not Epstein?
I'm going to talk about the Belmont story, and there's a couple of aspects of Belmont. One is that Gillian Ludwig's killer is now on trial, but the other is that apparently Belmont's trying to skirt around the edges with DEI. We'll discuss that a little bit. We'll take a few phone calls. And Andy Ogles is apparently going to the Department of Education and wanting Belmont to be investigated. So we'll talk a little about that. The presidential health, we'll discuss that. And the economy seems to be doing pretty well.
Seems to be doing pretty well. So this is good. It's good times, everybody. Matt, straight ahead, and he's not going to curse today. He promises. He effing promises.
Damn right.
All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow.